What is up, YouTube? This is your boy, the original Renaissance man, Devon DaVinci, and right now I'm gonna be doing a continuation to the three-part episodes or the three-part series of top 13 creepypastas, or at least top 13 video game related creepypastas. He has another video for non-video game related creepypastas. So far we've done 13 through 9, then we did 8 through 2, and this is the number one video game creepypasta according to this content creator. What was his name again? I'm slipping. It's Hoodo Hoodlum's Revenge. Again, if you want to see this video, there's a link in the description down below. It takes you to the original video. You can watch all 13 entries in one foul swoop. And if you want to check out my videos that I did on this, then be sure to check out my channel and go back and look and see the other 2 videos. Again, I'm going to jump right into it because this looks like it's about 10 minutes long on the one entry, so I'm sure it's going to have a lot of detail in it. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
Number 1. Remember how I said I was only going to include one Pokemon creepypasta? Well, I lied. I know, this may be considered cheating, but in my opinion, this story really is the scariest video game creepypasta that I have ever read. And I'm surprised it's not brought up more often. That's why I've decided to include it on the list. To let you all know about this fantastic story.
I would assume Pokemon
and to keep
Black.
the list at least somewhat fresh. My number 1 pick as the scariest video game creepypasta is Pokemon Come Follow Me.
I never heard of this one.
Following the increased deaths of youths in Japan due to Pokemon Red and Green, a team of detectives were set out to conclude just why this was caused by a simple video game. The story describes way more violent deaths than usual, such as how children committing suicides were found sawing off their own limbs, others sticking their faces inside ovens, and some choking themselves with their own fists by shoving their own arms down their throats. The few children who were saved before killing themselves showed sporadic behavior, and when asked about the games, the children would scream and scratch at their own eyes. This confirmed the suspicion that the games, somehow, had a connection to the increased numbers of suicides. The strange thing was that the games only seemed to affect some, and not others. Collecting all cartridges the victimized children had purchased, the police sealed them away as evidence for later. The detectives interrogated numerous people who had worked on the game, such as main programmer Takanori Uda and music composer Junichi Matsuda. Unfortunately, no conclusion was reached. The detectives decided to examine the cartridges further. Popping one in, they saw that the time for how long the children had played was incredibly low, and the children had only one Pokemon in their inventory. This made the detectives come to the realization that the Lavender Town music could not have been what caused the children to commit suicides.
It would have to be something after you got the
brought
first
them to the
Pokemon.
conclusion that something early in the game must have been the cause. After looking through the list of programmers for the game, they saw one of them, Shiru Miura.
Even like the first tall grass you run into, you catch a Pidgey or
release.
something. You don't never just
He
like
had
not catch
contributed
anything.
very little to the game, but interestingly, he had asked not to be credited in the game. The detectives learned more and more about Shiro, and about why he so desperately wanted to be involved in the game. Shiro had an idea, and he wanted to program a Pokemon into the game unlike no other, that wouldn't just revolutionize the gaming industry, but the world as a whole. Through many strange and insane happenings, the detectives were at last directed to Chiro's work partner while making the game, Sosuke Tamada. When interrogating the man, the detectives felt very uneasy. The discussion quickly got heated, until Sosuke told them that Shiro was an idiot who was very easy to manipulate. Sosuke was able to control him flawlessly. Sosuke was the man who had planned it all. Sosuke told the men what to do, and they did it. It was all his idea, and when Shiro realized what he had done, it led to his ultimate demise. He furiously told the detectives that if they were so determined on finishing the case, why not play the game themselves? Roll the wheel, and who knows? Maybe you'll learn the secret for yourself, he told them.
That should have been the first step you took.
Killing himself. The case was put to rest, as the main perpetrator was now dead, and the police couldn't handle more people dying as a result of the investigation. 10 years later, in February of 2006, the lead detective, who had left the force long ago, got curious and picked up one of the cartridges that were sealed away 10 years ago, as he still had access to the old files. He pulled out his deceased son's old Game Boy, as both his son and wife had passed away some time ago, and put in the cartridge and turned the game on. Starting a new game, it was all normal.
Notice a contradiction.
The detective started approaching the grass. He could hear Sosuke's words echoing in his mind. One step away. When he entered the tall grass, at first, nothing happened. It was like time stood still. The screen went black, and then lit up again, with text appearing on a blank background. The detective was shocked. On screen were words from his deceased family members, calling for him from beyond the grave, stating how they missed him and wanted him to come follow them. The detective started shouting as his eyes grew wide. He shouted at the game to bring his wife and child back. He wanted to see them. He wanted them back. Suddenly, the man heard hundreds of voices. As he turned around, looking behind him, in the small room were children. Hundreds of deceased children. Some had no eyes, some had rings around their throats, and some were burned across their whole bodies. They all screamed out things they had lost and wanted back, such as deceased relatives or family pets. They were screaming, crawling, and reaching towards the detective. "Come follow me," said a calm voice. There, in front of the detective, stood Sosuke, like a saint. The detective
I thought it was Jesus.
Sosuke, who had killed himself, stood there in the room, tall, handsome, and calm.
This is a weird way to recruit Christians.
Opened the detective's old drawer and pulled out his old gun from when he was in the force. A gun which the detective had sworn never to use again after he left. But now, the detective saw it as the only way. He saw it as the only way to see his family again. The detective looked back at the dead children, still crawling and reaching out for him and for the game. He looked back at Sosuke and picked up the gun from Sosuke's hands. He put it to his head, smiled back at Sosuke, and pulled the trigger. His body was found days later, a gun in one hand and an old Game Boy in the other, with Pokemon Red inserted in it. This was the last straw for the authorities. Too many people had died because of the case. The only remaining detective decided to personally carry out every single cartridge and burn all of them. They would hurt no one no more.
I'm guessing credits. Oh boy. Yeah, that number one to me was kind of disappointing. There's a few contradictions I noticed that really stuck out to me. Which, earlier in a past video, I said that creepypastas always are like really badly written and stuff. I mean, they're very interesting, and usually if you start doing research into creepypastas, you'll be doing it all day because they're interesting. I like watching them. They really like draw my attention to them because of the mystery factor to them, and especially if you have a creepypasta related to a game that you like. I don't think there's any Final Fantasy creepypastas out there. If it is, somebody please get on that. But yeah, about this story in particular, the first thing I noticed was when they said that they were doing investigations because a lot of kids had killed themselves playing Pokemon Red and Green. So if a lot of kids at once killed themselves, that means that a lot of people would have just like gotten aware of the game. So I'm guessing this is around launch when the games were first released. And then a little bit later, he says that his son, who was long since dead, had a copy of the game. So, like, how could your son have a copy of the game if he's long since been dead? Unless you consider long since to be like a month or something. How could he have a copy of the game if it just came out? And there's a few things. Like, the whole idea of him freaking out and stuff just because some text popped up on the screen and how easy it was to convince him to kill himself. Don't get me wrong. If a room full of fucking kids pop up with them asking me for shit like I'm Santa Claus or something, I'm gonna freak out too. As well as the Jesus packing heat coming down and, you know, trying to get you to kill yourself. That would be freaky as hell too. But it seems like, to me, if you were that eager to kill yourself, and I'm not condoning suicide in any way, but just based on this story, just me observing this story by itself, it seems like if it was that easy to convince you to kill yourself, you probably would have already done it. Because you shouldn't need a game to tell you that, oh, your family's dead and the only way you're going to see them is when you're dead. That should have been something you've known from the beginning. I have a lot of dead family members. Everybody has a lot of dead family members. Everybody knows only way you'll potentially see them again is after you're dead. I mean, that should be common knowledge. And also the last thing I noticed was they said he had a gun and he swore not to use the gun ever again, even though he's currently a detective. Seems like a bad idea to not use a gun if you're a detective. Maybe he has another gun. Maybe that gun is like a keepsake or something. Maybe his wife was like a fan of guns and she died. I don't know. But yeah, like usually creepypastas, you can always punch holes in them, but it's best to try not to. I only did that because, you know, giving you guys my opinion about it. But yeah, usually you want to try to suspend your disbelief and just watch it and enjoy it. If you happen to have a creepypasta that wasn't on this list, and maybe even if it's related to one of your favorite games, be sure to leave information about it down in the comment section. Maybe even leave a link so we can go ahead and check out the story, the original story ourselves. And that's it. I've talked enough. If you like this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe and share. This is the original Renaissance man, Devon DaVinci. I'm signing out. I'll see you guys on the next video. Deuces.